You're welcome back from that short commercial break, and on today's episode of Coffee Court, Fred Makubia will be taking us through the Uganda's performance of law, and we'll be looking at the strengths and weaknesses. Let's have a look.
Well, as Uganda heads towards celebration of independence, we ask ourselves, we discuss matters of legal in this country, what went wrong, where are we, and where are we headed. Dr. David Ruheza joins us. He's a law doctor from Makerere University. He's here to weigh in on the matters regarding legality in this country. This is the Coffee Court. Doctor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Just a slight correction. Whereas my mother wanted a David, I am Daniel.
Thank you. He's Daniel Ruheza from Makerere University. He's a law doctor. What does it take to hold the position of a Don?
You just simply have to perform well for your first degree at Makerere, and in most cases apply to do your master's degree in any university, and then apply to Makerere when the slots appear, or to any other university anyway. The concept of law don really is a law lecturer. It's just that it has been tweaked and fancified in one way or another.
Okay.
Yes.
Uganda is headed for another celebration of independence.
Yes.
Where have we come from? Where are we and where are we headed?
We've come from far. 1962 is when we had our independence properly declared and given to us, honestly given to us on a silver platter. Because compared to Kenya and Tanzania, which had the Mau Mau and Maji rebellions respectively, we more or less did not fight for independence. This was really a negotiated settlement with different political actors, kingdoms coming together, negotiations in Lancaster House in London, United Kingdom, and then the Duke comes and hands over the instruments of power to Apollo Milton Obote as Prime Minister. At that point, by the way, the Queen remained head of government or head of state, and the next year, 1963, an amendment was made to make the Kabaka of Buganda as president, and his deputy was the Chabazinga of Busoga Nadiope. Now, we've come from a distance. We have had colonialism that took a long time. Uganda was declared a British protectorate in 1894 by Frederick Lugard. After a lot of back and forth, religious wars, by the way, that took place. And in 1900, we had for the first time what looked like a constitutional agreement. As to whether it was an agreement or not is a good debate, because the king was so young, his father was in exile. That was the 1900 Uganda agreement that was signed real on his behalf. And we are told that when Kabaka Daudi came of age, he said, this is Vyoya Byanswa, I've been given nothing.
Okay.
And in 1902, later on, 1902 actually is very important, because that's when we had the inception or reception clause that made all laws that were applicable in the entire British Empire to become applicable in Uganda. So even laws on piracy became laws in Uganda. And so we started moving on from there with a long history of the British as our colonial masters, until a negotiated settlement was brought in on the backdrop of, you remember, the kicking out of the Kabaka sometime before the 1955, because he had refused to acquiesce to the formation of the East African Federation. And I think the governor then was Cohen, who said that under Article 6 of the Buganda Agreement, If the Kabaka and his people do not agree to obey the laws and procedures made for their own governance, then we shall stop recognizing you. So the Kabaka is exiled for the first time, Uganda becomes ungovernable, and then there's a negotiation with the Namirembe Conference, he comes back, and then we begin to see the process that brought in independence in 1962. Now we've come from far.
With that long preamble, let's now connect, Doctor, to matters of business.
Yes.
Do we have laws in this country that regulate business?
Yes, we do.
And what are these anyway?
Yes, we do. We have the Sale of Goods Act, we have the Contract Act, we have the Companies Act, Partnership Act, the PPDA Act, among others. So we have quite a plethora of laws that deal with business in this country. And in fact, we have a rich history. For example, like I said, 1902, I believe, when we had the reception clause, 1902, 1911, when we had the reception clause of all laws governing business, even the law on evidence
is also
there. So all those laws, Contracts Act, and so on, became laws applicable in Uganda today.
Is it about having a forest of laws?
We have many laws, that is true, we can't deny. And the problem is, how are they being implemented?
Okay.
For example, historically, the colonial machine made it very difficult for your grandparents and mine to do business in the Central Business District.
That was there.
There was an ordinance that was specifically saying that the black man cannot do business within a 10-mile radius of the Central Business District. So that's where you have people dealing in bananas and so on, but within the CBD, that was left for our brothers, the Indians. And it's for that reason and others that you see, for example, the Uganda Farmers Association by Ignatius Musazi coming in.
I thought that was of late, Doctor. The Uganda Farmers, I thought it's just of late.
No. Uganda Farmers Association is an old party, or at least the idea is old, because at that time, Ike Musazi and his ilk were campaigning and advocating for better pay for the cash crops that they were producing, coffee, cotton, and so on. It would later morph into the Uganda National Congress and finally Uganda People's Congress, led by Apollo Milton Obote. But the foundation, in my view, was business in nature. Fair competition, value for money for their cash crops, etc.
So if we have all these good laws regulating and managing business, what went wrong or what has gone wrong?
The question is anything wrong? I don't know whether you are saying that there's something wrong with the way business is done.
I don't know what you're saying.
Let's argue, for example.
Maybe let's look at the business environment.
Okay,
anyway.
the business environment is about taxation. The business environment is about fair competition. The business environment is about protecting the customer to make sure that the customer does not have poor quality products. You know, we even have the Consumer Protection Act.
And that's what I'm saying. If we have all these good laws and regulations, so when I ask that, could there be anything wrong?
It goes back to the rule of law. Rule of law.
Okay.
The rule of law is to the extent, ideally the rule of law is about ensuring everybody acquiesces to the law. That there is nobody who, in their view, decides not to obey the law or to cut corners. So when goods arrive, are we all paying taxes? Are we all paying fair taxes? Is there any smuggling? Is there any corruption that is happening that makes it possible for some goods to come in and others not to? Number two, counterfeits. There's been a huge battle on counterfeit products in Uganda. And that's where the laws on intellectual property also come in. Because if you produce a counterfeit product, counterfeiting means that, for example, there is a brand called Samsung and yours is called Samsung.
And that's why I'm puzzled as a Ugandan. If you're talking about counterfeit, you have organizations which Council Fred Mwema,
yes,
who happens to be your colleague, Anti-Counterfeit Network. You have
yes,
Uganda National Bureau of Standards.
Yes.
So what has gone wrong with all the establishments of the institution, yes, and all the laws regulating this?
Yes. One, human beings are always ingenious. You put a law in place, you put an institution in place, they'll find a way around it. So we must, those who are in charge of fighting counterfeit products must always be on their toes, ready to change even as the alleged criminal is changing. I have gone to the registry when it was still at Georgian House, and I have seen so many counterfeit products that have been confiscated there. So some work is being done, you know, but the truth is that even when you watch the news, you find people producing and branding fake products as though they were genuine. So the work is still out there, and it's going to involve everybody. The media, myself, the general citizen, the police, the investigative arms, the security forces must all come together to ensure that anything that is a counterfeit product is not either brought into Uganda or is not manufactured in Uganda. And there must be heavy penalties for the same. Now, penalties in a country like ours are given by a specific institution, and that is the judiciary, right? So it means that the commercial division of the judiciary, it means that the magistrates' courts in the different spaces must be facilitated very well to work. Are they being facilitated? We now know that there is the Administration of Justice Act that has come into play. More judicial officers have been appointed, which is a step in the right direction.
The reason most people blame you, you call yourself the land colleagues, the land
yes,
friends.
Yes.
Even when I'm in a wrong, I run to you for help. So
yes,
aren't you responsible for some of the issues? Your profession,
yes,
isn't it responsible for what is happening in this country?
There is a misunderstanding of what the role of a lawyer is. First of all, a lawyer is a member of the judiciary. We are called to the bar. You get it? When I receive my instruments of practice, I receive them before the Chief Justice. My duty, among others, is to act professionally to ensure that justice is done.
And what is professionalism to you?
Now, I am coming there. So it means that when someone has been accused of doing something, I must give them adequate legal representation. That you do not accuse one innocent man to be guilty, and so for us the law would rather set 99 guilty men free than accuse an innocent one. That is the foundation on which we work. Now, it is true that some of our colleagues do things wrong, compromise the judiciary, practice unprofessionally, engage in corruption, and all such challenges. I cannot hide my face to the fact that that happens. But ideally, we are supposed to give both the accused and the accuser their due date in court, their due opportunity in court. So when I fight that someone who's been found dealing in prohibited timber, and I ask for bail for them, I'm following the law that provided for bail. That is my duty as a judicial officer. When he is accused and he says, this is the evidence that shows I am not guilty, I am his advocate, I speak on his behalf. The Baganda call it Nze plead away. I plead on his behalf.
Even when you know he's already in the case.
Professionally, if you know that your client is guilty, you are supposed to advise him adequately. Okay? That is why sometimes you find a person pleads guilty to manslaughter or to a lesser charge than to the higher charge of, say, murder. You get the point? Because you, as the lawyer, having looked at the evidence and listened to the story of the individual, you're now supposed to advise them accordingly. And if they refuse your advice, as a judicial officer, as a lawyer, you have the right and mandate to say, I will not represent you thus far. I will let you go because we are not in agreement on how we are going to move.
Maybe
now the professional that we are, or the unprofessional chaps will say, will let us move. I see a loophole that we can manipulate, which should not really be the case. But ideally, we are supposed to represent both sides to enable the judicial officer arrive at a judicious solution.
Are you satisfied with the laws that we have in this country? Laws that regulate matters of land, matters of counterfeit, matters of taxation. As maybe as a senior lecturer,
I am happy that we have laws. All right. I am even happy that we are not a failed state. So I give credit to the powers that be in that regard. Because there are some situations where you go into a country and it's a failed state. It has no law. There are no lawyers. Judges are being killed, like we were commemorating Benedicto Chiwanka recently. At least where we are is positive. Is it perfect? Certainly not. Do some laws need amendment? I totally agree that they do. For example, poverty is a reality in our country today. So when you arrest someone for being rogue and vagabond, and yet you know the reality is that many people are poor and have nothing to do, they are looking for work. If you arrest someone who is sleeping on the street and charge him for being rogue and vagabond, you are not being cautious of the reality of poverty and lack of opportunity for some people. So there are some laws that need to be amended. I totally agree with you. The other laws that need amendment may deal with issues to do with bona fide purchasers of land. How do we deal with those scenarios? Questions to do with fraud. How do we deal with those conversations? By fraud, I mean situations whereby someone buys a property well knowing that the owner is somebody else.
So who should start the discussion of the amendment?
We all should start the discussion. And I'm happy you and I are even having this conversation.
Where do I have the powers as a local person?
No, you are not local. You are a journalist. And you see, you have this opportunity
I am
right
speaking
now.
for the
But now for the Mutua 1C, whenever you have an issue, there are different spaces where you can air out your challenges. The first one is at the law offices, the police, the LCs. These are legitimate spaces. If you can't access them, go to your traditional leader, go to your religious leader, and let them begin these conversations. Because one word that moves from one individual to another will reach someone else. Why do I talk about traditional leaders? Because there are people who are in government who listen to them. There are people in government who listen to religious leaders, speak to them. Come to the media, speak out. Blog about it, use social media, complain, write a letter, So there's different spaces where if you are not satisfied, you can actually take some form of action. Make a phone call. Don't just complain in your drinking joint, but do something about it. Go to the schools where they are teaching some of these concepts. So that something is, a conversation begins.
Okay.
The truth is that many times, we only complain in our sitting room.
And we never go
anywhere else. We don't talk to the police. We don't talk to our representatives. We don't talk to our MPs. We don't talk to our LCs. We talk to nobody. And therefore, when your leaders are given an opportunity to air out views in their forums, they have nothing to say. Because you, the individual, you have said nothing. Yes.
Doctor, we're talking about a country ready to celebrate 60th independence.
Yes.
We keep asking ourselves, some countries put economics more than politics.
Yes.
Here it seems to be a different case.
Ideology. And that is why it's important that when someone is standing for a position as member of parliament, we need to ask them, but what is your ideology? What are you going to do for us apart from buying an ambulance like the one I hear moving? Because that is not your role. Your role as a member of parliament, your role as a councillor is to advocate for good laws, is to hold the government responsible for the way they are expending our money. But if you have a main point like business and you are sure about it, then begin to front that idea. When I talk about ideology, I mean that we should be electing people who speak to the realities. And what are the realities? There is unemployment. As a member of parliament, as my leader who is going to speak on my behalf, what are you going to say about unemployment? What are you going to advocate? And let me hear you out before I cast my vote for you. Vis-a-vis the sugar and salt that you apparently, that sometimes we hear are what buy our votes. All right? Your ideology is very key. If as a member of parliament you are pushing for financial emancipation of your people, they will vote for you, because you're saying that it's not about getting a fish and giving it to you. It's about teaching you how to fish. So if I can access short-term loans for my people, if I can access financial literacy classes for my people, if I can tell my people that when I'm in parliament, I'm going to push for ways in which your small businesses can be supported to move on, regardless of whether I belong to NUP, FDC, NRM, name it. But if your interest is about the financial emancipation of your people, that the chapati seller, that the cabbage seller, that the person starting a taxi business is going to be given certain supports to emancipate themselves financially, and then be able to positively contribute to their nation and to their people and to their own self-sustenance, those are the people we'll vote for. Because what happens is when they get into parliament, those are the issues they are going to air out. But should you vote for people who are just going to talk politics like you are concerned, that is the politics you're going to be listening to. You get it? So that for me is key. Number two, education of both the politicians and the people who are called the electorate. Do you know, for example, that we have a duty to know our constitution? You and I, and whoever is listening to me, we have a duty to know our constitution. We have a duty to respect and uphold the constitution, to understand that Omuntu Wawansi has both rights but also responsibilities. For example, you have a responsibility to protect the environment.
So, Doctor, if I am afraid there is anxiety for taxation,
yes,
what role do I anyway have to play? It's Minister of Finance together with the other team.
Yes.
If the business community says the taxes are too high,
yes,
there is this and this and this happening.
Yes.
What role do I have?
That is why your TV station is very important, because it is dealing with these issues. You need to go out there and pick the views of people and air them out.
No, the Commission of URA will tell you, please go to Finance, go to Parliament. That is where everything begins. My role is simply to collect taxes.
Yes. Of course, and I totally agree that his mandate is just collect based on what has been agreed. So who do we begin to engage? We help the member of parliament who is going to pass these laws and amendments to have information. We help the Minister of Finance and the people working in the ministry to hold them accountable when it comes to accessing the citizen and getting information. Because you see, for a law to be passed, there must be a process of ensuring that you identify the problem. So, when you invite these people here on this TV station, ask them, who informed your decision to pass, for example, this thing to do with social media tax? Did you engage with the people of Uganda or not? Because clearly, they did not engage with the people of Uganda. Otherwise, the people would not have avoided that tax as they did. But if the tax comes from an understanding of where the priorities of the people are, you get it, there is a way in which the people begin to react. When you tell people that we are going to issue social media tax to cut down on the amount of of Luari and whatever that you are talking about, you have not understood that social media has become an avenue for business. You have not understood that social media has become an avenue for transaction, you know, of all these applications that we have and so on and so forth. But the point anyway that I'm making is an investigation, research, to find out what are the needs of the people. So that when you formulate a law, it is backed up by research.
Okay.
That is the point I'm making. What research has been made.
Maybe as we plan to bring to the closure of this debate.
Yes.
Independence is on the way.
Yes.
Celebration. You think that we are that financially independent?
We are not yet financially independent, but we are doing much better than before. Why do I say so?
With some people who can't afford $1?
Yes, that is true. We are not yet that financially independent, like I have clearly said, but we are not as badly as we were before. I say this because there are certain goods and services that are becoming available to us, to you and I, all right? Yes, they are coming at a high cost of living, they are coming at a high cost to us, but at least my traveling to Hoima, where my mother is, has been reduced from 2 days to 4 hours. So if I'm transacting a business of selling fish from Hoima, for example, to Kampala, I can know that it's not going to take me 2 days. It's going to take me 4 hours to travel. So I think that is a step in the right direction. However, there's still a lot that needs to be done. We are not yet independent of our donors. Our budgets are still heavily dependent on dollars, so on our donors. So there is work that needs to be done when it comes to financial independence.
But that's not only in Uganda.
No.
Kenya as a member of the East African community.
Yes.
Tanzania, Rwanda.
Yes.
That's not only in Uganda.
Yes.
Where we are basically relying on donation and maybe borrowing money from elsewhere. It's not only here in Uganda.
That is true, and that's why we need to listen to some of these authors like Dambisa Moyo, who is talking about dead aid and the disadvantages of aid. And we need to teach people that actually now Sobola, you can make a difference, all right? For example, what are they doing? What are you and I doing to earn a living instead of depending on a handout? At least there is opportunity to have some kind of education in UPE. But after you've had that UPE education, what are you going to use it for? So the thinking must not stop. And so for me, I would encourage, there is a book written by Dr. James Magara on think tanks. The thinking must not stop. How do we help our young people to think in order to have solutions?
Maybe in our next coffee court, that is where we will continue the discussion. Your parting shots, Dr. Daniel.
My parting shots are, yes, we are independent, 6 years down the road. Gachari mabaga, like the Budonians say. However, like we say in Mwiri, let's continue working for the nation and for our God. We shall be independent, one step at a time.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel, who is a law don from Makerere University. I like this quote that the classical definition of madness is you and I expecting different results, but we keep on doing the same things over and over time. Happy Independence Celebration, hoping that you and I will have to change a few things. This is the Coffee Court. My name is Fred Makubuya.
Thank you, Fred Makubea, for that insightful and in-depth conversation. We definitely need to take strategic decisions to be able to attain our own financial independence. Unfortunately, business today ends here, but if you watched or if you missed today's episode of Business Today, you can watch us live on YouTube, that is at Smart24 TV, and follow for more updates on Smart24 TV on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other more platforms. My name is NAHABWE with Winnie Buyinza Nakawuchi on the sign language, and this is a kind reminder that we do have a weekend edition where top stories that trend throughout the week run, so you could also watch that as well at the same time. So good night for now.